What Babaluba? Just looking around the room. Why? Well, we've been delayed today by about 10 minutes. What's today's excuse, one might be asking? And you wouldn't be wrong for asking that, because every day we call the show High Noon, but, really, what are we talking about here? If we get started before 10 minutes after the hour, that's a good day. Today, here's the problem. And you guys have been dears for not mentioning this, but I am well aware that there is a lighting issue going on this show, and it drives me insane. It's because I got the sun. It's high noon. I got the high noon sun literally beating directly down on me, so everything looks a little bit dark. So I tried to do something different with the lights here today, and it didn't work. But that's okay. We're not going to let that get us down. Let's say hi to our people in the people room. That's what a chat room is. Byron, Al, Mike is here. Jeff is here. We should talk about Jeff. Jeff, or heretofore known as his, what is it? What do they call him? The Lord Protectorate of the Duchy of Iowa. The Honorable Jeff B is exec producing today's show. That's pretty awesome. He dropped a very nice tip, so I appreciate that. And that's how you get to be the executive producer of this show. It's not how you get to be the Lord Protector of the Duchy of Iowa, the Honorable Jeff B. That's not how you get to be that. That comes from, well, I imagine you were born into it on some level, but also, some degree of accomplishment. Jeff is that. Jeff is today's executive producer, and we so appreciate the kindness, because it was a nice tip. Jeff gave a nice tip. Jeff gave a very nice tip. So thank you for that. And we do accept your tips, because that's how this kind of show runs. We don't do anything but accept your tips. I'm basically a bartender, a pizza guy. So if you are so inclined, I know what you're saying. Hey, it's the 11th day of the month, Pugs. Typically, you still aren't pushing for tips and all that until we get into, I don't know, like the third week. I know. Well, that's because, it hasn't been going good around here, Christmas season and whatnot. So if you are so motivated before those Christmas bills come in, you want to throw a little something our way, this show would certainly appreciate it. Big tip of the day, should we be so blessed as to get more than one tip, big tip of the day will become the executive producer, just like Lord Protectorate of the Duchy of Iowa, the Honorable James, the Honorable Jeff B. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Oh, Jeff claims he got that title the Iron Way, not the Gold Way. Oh, okay, I get it. See, that's a nerd reference that guys like me get. That's very Game of Thronesy. That means he earned it through battle and conquest. Oh, hold on, my computer's about to. All right, hold on, guys. We've done that, so now let's do this. Let's tell you what this show is as I try to plug in. I told you I had to rearrange the lighting, so now I forgot to plug something in. Here's what this show is. The High Noon Rant. I do it every day at noon-ish. We've already covered that. And it's all the day's information that you need to know. I go through the history of the day. We talk about people who had birthdays born on this day. We talk about people who died on this day. We decide if they go to heaven or hell. Those are the first 3 quarters of the show that we do here. Fourth quarter, that's where the rubber hits the road. That's where we go through all of the topics that are trending, all of the things that are making headlines, whatever it is people are talking about today in this moment. I give it to you. I tell you why it's trending. I tell you why it's a headline. Then I give you a hot take and we move on. What we don't do is we don't play stupid political games. You're not going to hear any. Rare is it that you'll hear the name Trump or Hunter or Obama. We don't do that. We don't do that because we don't care here. That's the whole point. There are so many other things that we can talk about and we can just clown on and have a good time collectively. That's the experiment that is your show, this show. So I appreciate you hanging out with us every day. So I'm going to begin the show now, and I like to have a clear point of begin, because this show is a stream of consciousness. It's just me extemporaneously speaking about all the day's world events, no breaks, no stop downs, no songs, nothing like that. If I got to go to the bathroom, I Mercury astronaut that bitch. That means I go in my suit. Luckily, I've never had to test that. Actually, I have. I think I have stopped the show to go to the bathroom, and you people have been wonderfully understanding. So it's a stream of consciousness. It's just nonstop talking. Sometimes it takes us down alleys. Sometimes we find ourselves in cul-de-sacs. Sometimes just flat out dead ends. And then we just stop and we start again. But it is an attempt to do something that's, I don't know. I don't know. Is it a skill to just stream of consciousness? Well, here's the other people that, well, aren't you afraid you're going to say something? What you just can't say everything that pops into your mind. You can if you're not a piece of shit. That kind of helps. Like if you start from a position where you're not a piece of shit, and you know that you got questions about things and some things you don't like, but you're not a judgmental piece of shit who thinks that, I don't like it, it's different. So that's why I'm pretty comfortable. Sometimes I say things. So I have my guardrails in the chat room. I have my guardrails. I consider my guardrails to be fine, longtime supporters of this operation. Adam Reyna on one end. And we got Byron on the other. They were polar opposites, but I know that they're my guardrails. They're like, okay, there's one extreme, there's the other extreme. Where am I going? Where am I going? That's how we do the show. Okay, so let's begin. Let's start it off. Like I said, it's 4 quarters. It begins with the history of this day. It starts second quarter is birthdays, third is deads, fourth is the actual meat and potatoes of the show. Let's get started. I am Pugs Moran. Welcome to the High Noon Rant for this day, the 11th day of January, year of our Lord, 2024. Did you know? You probably did. It's not that. You're all smart enough. You're all people who are seeking out alternative current events driven talk. So you're smart enough to know that January 11th would be the 11th day of the year. Let's move on to erstwhile on this day. All right. Quarter one. Here we go. Erstwhile on this day. This is when we take a look back at the events that have helped shape our understanding of what January 11th has meant. We're looking for patterns. We're looking for rhythms. Erstwhile on this day in 532. We're going way back. 532. Today is the day of the Nika riots. The Nika riots occurred in Constantinople. You know what they were? They were sports fans celebrating a championship. It turned into a riot. Just like we see when the Pistons win, just like we see, we see this all the time. This is a human thing. 532, the Nika riots in Constantinople, a quarrel between supporters of different chariot teams, the Blues and the Greens in the Hippodrome, escalates into widespread street violence. 532. That's who we were in 532. It's who we are now. We don't change that much. We change incrementally. like 532, Constantinople. I bet we're nicer to Jewish people now. Not incrementally, again. Jewish people, they feel pretty put up on these days. So, it's still not great for them, but, I imagine we've changed incrementally. Moving on, 1805, Michigan territory is created. Isn't that the white man's way of looking at it? You didn't create nothing. That was there. Somebody else was living there. You just named it after Michigan's. What does Michigan mean? Michigumi. What does that mean? It's an Indian word. I know what it means. Onions, something like that. No, that's Chicago. Chicago means stinky onions. I don't know. Michigan. What does Michigan mean? I don't know, maybe it's who knows. Guys, third day in a row. As I sit here, I am battling hiccups. I can feel them starting. They're going to come. Oh, geez. Let's see if I can regulate my breathing through a slowdown in my pattern. Although that disruption, the slowdown from the race, because I typically race when I begin the stream. The slowdown is what's going to cause the change. Okay, actually, I think I just beat it. Michigan, welcome to the party on this day in 1805. Nope, they're still coming. Hold on. I have tried everything. It's completely psychosomatic. I think these hiccups. I think that I am creating the hiccups because I've tried everything. I've disrupted my diet. I've disrupted what I do in the hours preceding this. There was even a week when I tried to poop before every show. Tried. At my age, that's not all. It's a roll of the dice. Moving on this day in 1861, erstwhile on this day, American Civil War, Alabama secedes from the United States. How'd that work out for you, Bama? On this day in 1927, Louis B. Mayer, head of the film studio Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, he announced the creation of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Scientists at a banquet. I was on this day in 27. He said, let's have Oscars. Where's that name come from? Oscar. Why we call it Oscar? Was there any famous Oscars back then? Was it named after a dude? Does it stand? No, because it's the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. Academy of Motion Picture. AMPAS. It should be called the ambassador. I don't know. Whatever. I don't know what Oscar is. Moving on. On this day, erstwhile in 1964, Surgeon General of the United States Luther Terry publishes the landmark report "Smoking and Health." This is when they put the warnings. They started saying that Surgeon General of the United States saying that smoking may be hazardous to health. 1964. This was always, if you watched Mad Men, this was a big plot point in the early seasons of Mad Men, because the Mad Men, the advertisers, were dealing with the fallout from the government's decision to label cigarette packaging, and they still needed to, nobody now, but there were people like up until like 25 years ago who would put on a suit and go on TV and say, smoking's totally healthy for you. Those guys existed until 25 years ago. Moving on. On this day, erstwhile in 1973, Major League Baseball owners vote to approve. They vote to improve. Let's just say that. It was on this day in 1973 the Major League Baseball owners decided to fix baseball, make it better. It's the DH. The DH came to the American League on this day in 1973. It made the game better. Shut up. You did. I prefer old timey dead ball style baseball. Now, shut up. No, you don't. We like home runs. We like high scoring games. The sport is now not just for the 13, 14, 15, 20, 30,000 fans in the stands. It's not just for them. This is a game that is needing to translate into living rooms. This is a digital game now. We need the long ball. Chicks dig the long ball. We know this. Thankfully, the National League finally came around. Why? Because all of their old-minded, super old dudes died. And their kids took over and went, yeah, this game is friggin' boring. Ask any 13-year-old how boring baseball. Baseball, man, I love baseball, and I applaud every change. How's that pitch count going, you old head losers? 100% approval. Everybody loves the pitch count. But there were a bunch, not pitch count, the pitch clock. But a bunch of you people were like, it's different, and I'm old, and when things are different, I get confused, and the confusion leads to fear, and the fear then leads to anger. Shut up. They're making baseball better. Ghost runner. There's still some of you people out there. I don't like the ghost runner in the 11th inning. Well, I don't like sitting through 18 innings of baseball for a 1-0 game. Okay? Those things were killing the game. And they're all fixed now. There you go, my baseball rant. Who says I can't do sports radio? You better look out. On this day, erstwhile, in 2020, COVID-19 pandemic in Hubei, the municipal health officials in Wuhan announced the first recorded death from COVID-19. All right, so that's 4 years ago now. So shit we believed when we were freshmen versus shit we know now as seniors. That was 4 years ago. What do we know about? Isn't it accepted knowledge? No, it's not. Isn't it accepted knowledge that it came out of China, out of Wuhan? Isn't that it's accepted, right? Doesn't make you a racist. You just hate people of color. What? What? Chinese aren't people. Well, I guess they are. It started there. We know it started there. I don't know if it started in a monkey, a wet market. I don't know. I don't care that much about it. You know why? Because I don't get involved in the political weeds of this nonsense. All I know is that it was something. People died. I saw people die. I know 3 people who died of it. Now, they had other things, but still, I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Can we just all come together now and go, it's been 4 years. We were dumb when we were freshmen. We refused to acknowledge. I don't know that I ever refused to acknowledge that it started in China. I don't think I knew. I don't think I had the proper information to really weigh in one side or the other. I didn't spend 14 hours a day on YouTube watching people go, it started because a dude screwed a monkey or whatever. I think that was AIDS. I think that's how they said AIDS started. Possibly, maybe it did. I don't know. My point is this. Man, there was a lot of nonsense about the COVID thing. And one of the things I'm pretty sure of now in 2024 is that it started in China. It started in Wuhan. It was released on purpose by a I don't think it was released on purpose. I mean, what do you mean by on purpose? It was released on purpose. Like by the government? Like this was a political op? Like the government of China released this to cause the global pandemic? Because that was really counterproductive for them because no nation suffered economically quite like the Chinese did. I mean, Chinese make every piece of bullshit that we go to stores and buy on impulse. We weren't going to stores and buying on impulse trust me. So I don't know, Chinese government sabotage like a terrorist guy, like one lone wolf, or maybe a guy, working with another group of terror actors. Maybe. Yeah, that's always possible. Humans are fucked up, man. You get one human in a position of, real importance and he's nutty because we don't take mental health seriously and he's nutty. Yeah, that can happen. I don't know, but it was on this day, 2020, the very first death attributed to the Wuhan COVID outbreak occurs. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about birthdays. By the way, I just came through we think it's the COVID. It's probably the COVID. I'm feeling great. Can you tell? This day, I feel like, woo, I'm starting to finally get some energy. I say that and I cough. See, I think that I'm not a hypochondriac. I'm not. I've never been a hypochondriac. But I do think that I manifest psychosomatic symptoms. I think the symptoms that I'm experiencing are real. I don't know why. I don't know why I do that. Why? Because we're complicated. Because there's a lot going on in every single one of our brains. Shit that most of us don't even dare checking out or looking into. I know there's places I don't go in my mind. I know, and I know that there are hallways and I can walk down that hallway. We all have it. All right, let's talk about some birthdays. They say it's their birthday. See, I can't play Beatles songs because we don't make any money on this show, and that's the whole thing. So I got to sing the songs. All right, let's talk about birthdays. Let's talk about singing birthdays. Born on this day. Wait, no, I guess I got to do it hip-hop version. I don't want to do that. Born on this day in 1755, Alexander Hamilton. He was a Nevisian American general, economist, and politician, first United States Secretary of the Treasury. He died in 1804. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexander Hamilton. So, like, here's what I'll say about Alexander Hamilton. My entire educational life, we learned all about founding fathers. He wasn't one of them. He was like an afterthought. Alexander Hamilton was like, oh yeah, and by the way, as the class is walking out and leaving because the bell is ringing. Oh yeah, by the way, Alexander Hamilton was saying that was it. That was basically what we learned about. We learned about Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, George Washington. We learned about those people, Paul Revere. We learned about those people. We didn't learn about Alexander Hamilton. He was barely touched on. Now, like, kids think he's like the primary founding father because of that stupid Broadway show. And yeah, I say a stupid Broadway show because I don't like musicals. Although I did watch Hamilton. I did. I gave in. I gave it what? I'm going to have this cultural blind spot my whole life. Everybody in the world is talking about Hamilton. I got to see it. I got to at least know what they're talking about if I'm going to be against it. That's good attitude. I went into it wanting to be against it. My point is this. The toe was tapping. Yeah, the damn toe was tapping. I found myself halfway into Hamilton going, how much longer is this? Thoroughly enjoyed Hamilton. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Never saw it live. Wouldn't mind seeing it live, if I'm being honest. I would see Hamilton live. My point is this. Alexander Hamilton has way outkicked his coverage with young people today. They think that he was something way more than he was. He was a dude who was basically kept in check by Thomas Jefferson his whole career. They hated each other, by the way. Because Jefferson had big dreams and big goals and a vision for this country, and Alexander Hamilton was a damn bean counter. Moving on. All right, let's talk about this. Who else was born on this day? Born on this day in 1923, Carroll Shelby, a guy stricken with a woman's name who overcompensated so much that he went on to create the most badass muscle cars in the world. Carroll Shelby. That's right, the Shelby Mustang, right? Well, it started with Shelby Mustang, but then there were Shelby GTs and Carroll Shelby, Texan, born on this day in 1923. Born on this day in 1942. How about the big man? Oh my goodness. Can we all just say a prayer? Moment of silence for the big man. That's all he needs. Clarence Clemens of the E Street Band. Born on this day in 1942. Now, all of you know that I'm a middle-aged white guy who was raised in the Midwest and came of age in the 1980s. So, of course, I'm a diehard Springsteen fan. Basically wrote my Bible. I've seen Springsteen so many times. It's first time in 1984. That was the first time I saw him. But I've seen him so many times since. Love them. They're just like, I don't have a religion, but that's like, that you go to a 3-hour Springsteen concert with a bunch of friends. I always try to go with someone who's never been to one before, because that's always the one you want to go, yeah, what do you think? Dude, I know all these songs. Yeah, I know. You don't know you know them, but you do. I don't know. It's cool. I've seen Bruce with Clarence, and I've seen him without Clarence, and I'd be a liar if I said that it's not missing something. Clarence, the whole Clarence and Bruce on stage together. Clarence, this big giant dude with a saxophone, and Bruce, this little sort of like his little buddy. You know what it was kind of like? Remember those dogs? It was like a big bulldog, and he was like, and he looked all mean, and he was like, big bulldog, and then there was like his little friend. His little friend was like, yeah, that's what he says, yeah. That whole dynamic. That's kind of what Bruce and Clarence had on stage, and the little dog was the much bigger star, but Clarence, I don't know, they had a cool relationship. Clarence Clemens, born on this day. He actually had a solo hit. He had I think he did a Jackson Brown. Didn't he have a hit with Jackson Brown? You're a friend of mine. Just like a really disposable 1980s pop hit. All right, moving on. Clarence Clemens, born on this day in 1942. Born on this day in 1946, Naomi Judd. Oh, pour one out for the original G. Naomi Judd. She gacked herself. Here's to you. She was a cool broad. She was that. I got nothing bad to say about any of the Judds. They all seem cool. Naomi Judd had that thing where she was like poor almost all of her life, like until her daughters grew up and she went, wow, they're talented. And then she's like, well, I'm kind of talented to start with. Maybe if we hit, and then, like between when she died like 75. So she probably lived the life between 40 and 75. That's 35 years. Spent the first half of it in just abject poverty, abusive relationships. She was a nurse. So, there's that. There's being a nurse and all the shit that comes with that majestically honorable profession. And then, she was with drunks and alcoholics, and they beat her up, and she had to run away from abuse. She was a good lady. I liked her. Happy birthday, Naomi Judd. Not a big fan of the music. Not really. Don't know if I'm a big fan of the music, honestly. Not really all that familiar with the Judds. Born on this day in 1957, we called him Chocolate Thunder. He was Daryl Dawkins. Do the old NBA heads remember Daryl Dawkins? I mean, do anyone but the old NBA heads remember Daryl Dawkins? Chocolate Thunder, man. That dude, he broke backboards. That's why he was famous. He was good, but he wasn't, he wasn't Moses, and he wasn't Dr. J, and he wasn't the other guys who dominate, Artis Gilmore, and, those guys who dominated this era of NBA basketball. Gervin. But he broke backboards. He was the dude that shattered backboards, man. And that was like, to a 12-year-old kid, whoa, Chocolate Thunder. Happy birthday, Daryl Dawkins, although he can't hear us because he's dead. Born on this day in 1971. How about Mary J. Blige? Oh, I like her. She's a real one. I have this attraction. I have this attraction to a type of coolness in a girl, where a girl has to be cool. Like, I love a nerdy girl. I don't really love a nerdy girl. I love a cool girl. I love a cool, confident, she's not intimidated by anybody, or more to the point, she's probably intimidated quite a bit, but she has the ability to sort of overcome that. That's where the cool confidence comes in. Mary J. Blige has that. She's got this sort of calm thunder. You know, there's like you don't. Yes, Mary J. Yes, you know, you very. I don't know. She seems cool. She's always struck me as a cool chick. Mary J. Blige Mary J. Blige celebrating a birthday today. Born on this day in 1971. All right, now let's move on to those who have dead. These are the people who have dead. These are the people who have dead. People who have dead. Dead on this day in 1843. Is he in heaven or is he in hell? Francis Scott Key, American lawyer, author, and songwriter. He wasn't a songwriter. Can we stop? There's somebody out there who actually wrote the Star Spangled Banner who isn't getting credit. Francis Scott Key wrote a poem. He wrote a poem. That poem, coincidentally, are the lyrics to the Star Spangled. But who wrote the Star Spangled Banner? Because I always think, like if that was a trivia question, who wrote the Star Spangled Banner, I would go, Francis Scott Key, but that's only half of it. He wrote the poem. Anyway, where is he? He's in hell, because I don't know. Maybe he's in heaven. He was so moved by the defense of his new nation in the face of the British monarchy that he wrote that. He wrote the. All right, he's in heaven. All right, we're putting Francis. We're going to find out who wrote the music, but I'll put Francis Scott Key. Anyone in the chat room? John Philip Sousa? Byron says, were they right? I don't know. You're just grabbing at the only name that sounds like it could come from that era that maybe fits what I'm asking, and I applaud you for it. Because I don't know if it's John Philip Sousa. It might be. I don't know. All right, moving on. More deads. Wally Pipp died on this day. Wally Pipp died on this day in 1965. Old baseball heads, again, really old baseball heads are the only people who would still talk about Wally Pipp. As a matter of fact, if you are still capable of talking about Wally Pipp, I want to meet you because you're over 100 years old, and that's really interesting. Wally Pipp played for the Yankees. He was the best hitter on the team. He was one of the best hitter in baseball. And that's significant to note because he played on the Yankees with Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth played with Wally Pipp for 3 years, and Wally Pipp outslugged him every single year. Wally Pipp was a big hitting first baseman. Now, why do we, if we do it all, remember Wally Pipp? Wally Pipp is best known now as the guy who was replaced by Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig! And why is that significant? Because Lou Gehrig would go on to be the Iron Man. Lou Gehrig would go on to play more games at first base and more games at a position than anyone in the history of baseball. It was Cal Ripken who finally broke that record. But Lou Gehrig, that's why it's significant. Because, boy, the Yankees haven't had a first baseman in years and years and years. Who was the first baseman before Lou Gehrig? Answer to that trivia question, Wally Pipp. I'm going to put him in heaven. No, he's an old baseball guy. See, this has got to be another one of my rules. Old baseball guys. Dead era baseball guys probably all need to go to hell. They were probably all terrible. Really, really terrible. And I go by, I set the bar at Ty Cobb. I imagine that Ty Cobb being a terrible person, we only know about because he was also an exceptional baseball player. But how many other terrible Ty Cobb types were out there in Major League Baseball who just weren't the legendary player that Ty Cobb was? So, all right, Wally Pipp, you're going to hell. I can't make an exception. Here's somebody else who's going to hell, although this requires some explanation. Pappy Boyington, Black Sheep Squadron. Pappy Boyington, American colonel, pilot, Medal of Honor recipient. Pappy Boyington died on this day in 1988. I'm sending him to hell. You know why I'm sending him to hell? Because I don't know enough about the real Pappy Boyington. You know what I know? I know there was a show called Black Sheep Squadron on NBC in the 1970s, and it starred Robert Conrad as Pappy Boyington. And Robert Conrad was a D-bag. Oh, my God. He was a theater nerd who spent his entire career cosplaying as a tough guy. I know this because I've met Robert Conrad a number of times. I used to work on a radio show, an overnight radio show, a legendary overnight radio show, back when overnight radio shows were legendary. God, I'd love to do an overnight radio show again. Anyway, point is this. I used to work on a show, and Robert Conrad was a regular, because Robert Conrad, as it turns out, was from Chicago, and I guess he would come home for family, and he'd always come and do the radio show because he was, a fame whore. He would do whatever. He was a dick. He was a jerk. He thought he was real, I didn't like him. So because of that, because he played Pappy Boyington is getting sent to hell because Robert Conrad was a D-bag. He also, remember, he did those commercials with Duracell. First of all, here's what you need to know. Robert Conrad is like 5'8" and doughy. Okay. He's not a big dude. He's not an intimidating dude. And yet, remember, he did those Duracell commercials where he put on a super tight black t-shirt and they shot him at a really close-up angle. And he put a battery on his shoulder. He's like, go ahead. I dare you to knock the battery off. When in reality, it's like any one of us would just go, what? Okay. He's a doughy, middle-aged, 5'8" dude. I didn't like him. I did not like Robert Conrad. So unfortunately, Wally Pipp gets sent to hell. Or I'm not Wally Pipp, Pappy Boyington. Wally Pipp got sent to hell for other flimsy reasons. Dead on this day in 2014, also going to hell. How about Ariel Sharon? He's the Israeli general and politician. He's an Israeli general. He was an Israeli general during the 7 Days War. Of course he's going to hell. The stuff that they did, there were terrible, inhumane things that were done. All right, that's going to do it. That's 1, 2, and 3/4 of this daily stream of consciousness in the books. Now it's time for us to get into the things that are happening today. That's right, quarter 4 of this show. But before we do that, I need to let you know today's show is executive produced by the Lord Protectorate of the Duchy of Iowa, the Right Honorable Jeff B. Thank you to Jeff. How did Jeff get to be the executive producer? Well, because he tipped the show. That's right. The biggest tipper of the day does receive the honor on the following day of being the executive producer. And it is a symbolic title at best, but you need to know I do appreciate it. So it's the only thing that I can do as a thank you. So if I can, make you feel good for helping the show, that's what I'll do. All right. We're going to leave that up as we go into the topics that are shaping our understanding of this day. As I say, if you're so inclined, drop a little something in the tip jar. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Let's talk. Story 1, Israel. War. It's happening over there. They're still negotiating for hostages. There's all kinds of things happening. There are a million details of things that have occurred in the last 24 hours concerning the Israeli situation. Go somewhere else if that's what you want. But it is a big story, and Israel is still happening. Story 2, Ecuador. Almost the same thing. Mayhem is occurring in the streets of Ecuador, although the police and the government do now claim that under martial law, they have gotten it under control. What does this stem from? We talked about it yesterday. 2 rival cartel leaders both broke out of prisons in Ecuador within like 72 hours of each other. Both of them immediately took to the streets with their soldiers and started wreaking just absolute mayhem. They took over a TV studio live while the TV studio was on air. They took over a TV studio. They seized universities. They tried to take the airport, but were repelled back by Ecuadorian forces. It is nuttiness. That's what's happening in Ecuador. Moving on. How about a government shutdown? We haven't talked about that in a while, but that's a story that's percolating today because we are a scant 8 days away. It'll be 1 week from tomorrow when the government will either shut down or they will find a compromise. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, he's got a compromise because he doesn't want to shut the government down because no speaker wants to be the speaker when the government gets shut down because that is a scarlet letter on your public service record that doesn't look good for future endeavors. Point is that it means you can't negotiate. It means that even when you're in a position of power, which the Speaker of the House always is, it means that you lack the ability to bring people to the table, and that is not what people want in a leader and all that stuff. Anyway, it's a bad look. So Mike Johnson doesn't want this. He might enjoy, for purely political and partisan reasons, the theatrical aspects of it, and all the hay and the opportunities for other caucus members, like-minded caucus members, to go on Fox News and Newsmax and get some TV time and raise some money for their reelection. He might approve all of that. But he really, as Speaker of the House, he's got to stop being silly, and he's got to actually go, okay, how do we keep the government running, guys? Can we just like stop all of this nonsense and just how do we keep? So that's what he's trying to do. You might remember this move from Kevin McCarthy. That's right. That's exactly what Kevin McCarthy tried to do when they kicked his ass out. So there is a very strong contingent that Mike Johnson is trying to navigate. Again, this is not partisan political. I'm just talking about the politics that run our country and what is going on here. There's a very strong part of the caucus that does seem like they could care less if the government shut down. Because of this, to overcome this, Johnson has had to deal with some Democrats. And then now there's more in his caucus that don't like that move. So we're looking at, I don't know how we avoid a shutdown they will call another vote. Like if Johnson brings to the floor to avoid the shutdown, the compromise deal with the other party, if he brings us to the floor, the people who support him are going to turn on him the same. It's a mess. This is our country. We are living in real time through the very obvious flaws of a representative democracy. This is, you want to know what the flaw is? Humanity. That's the flaw. Humans are flawed. Moving on. CPI, this is a big story that was released this morning. It's supposed to make us feel good. I don't know if it's supposed to make us feel good or feel bad. I don't even understand this. CPI is the Consumer Price Index. It rose. So what does that mean? That means that things basically got a little bit more expensive. And for some reason, the rich guys on Wall Street are celebrating this. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Price of milk going up is good for us because it means that people can't afford the price of milk to go up because we would never allow the marketplace to strangle the limited income of its citizenry. I don't know what this means, CPI. Or I'll tell you what. This comes from CNBC. I'll read you the first paragraph. You tell me what this means. Consumer Price Index rose 0.3% in December, higher than expected. This pushed the annual rate to 3.4%. The Consumer Price Index increased 0.3 in December and 3.4 from a year ago, compared with respective estimates of 0.2 and 3.2. Excluding volatile food and energy prices, the so-called core CPI, I don't know what any of this means. And you know what? All I know is gas manageable? No, not yet. And I know that gas has come down, and there's people out there going, Biden's bringing the price of gas down. First of all, it's happening on his watch, so he does deserve some credit for that. But no president controls the price of gas unless we are in an extreme situation where oil production has been ground to a halt and we do something that involves the reserves. It's the only time the president can have a direct effect on the price of oil. We are in league with a foreign agency. That's what OPEC is. They set the prices. They determine what oil is. They determine what the price at the pump is. Now, you might say, but Pugs, we could kind of, shave the price off if, the people who ran the oil companies didn't want, $10 million bonuses every quarter. Yeah, we could. But we misdirect our anger. Yet again, we do this a lot. We misdirect our anger at OPEC. We misdirect at them. Are they sons of bitches? Yeah, they are. Do they hate America? Absolutely. So we need to keep them where we can find them. But it's the American capitalists who have completely driven the price of refining oil in this country and delivering it to gas stations out of whack. I don't have a problem with the guy who runs Exxon making $5 million a year. I got a problem with him making $5 billion a year because I got to wonder where all that money is coming from and if there's any way you could relieve the stress put on the middle class of this great country by maybe taking a bit of a shave on your price. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And there was a story today that just infuriates me, and it should infuriate you. And we'll get to that as the stream of consciousness continues. Oh, guess what? That story is now. Okay. There is a story on Axios here today, this morning, and it was trending. And it's about the stock market and Wall Street. And I know some of you dabble. Oh, yeah, some of you got stuff. What do you mean? I'm a Wall Street guy. I got Wall Street stocks. Yeah, you're cute. What do you do? You got a guy in the local town square Charles Schwab or something. But stop it. There is a pretend shell game going on out there economically that allows all of us to think that we have anything to do with the stock market. We don't. Table scraps at best. Oh, I'm going to make it rich. The rich now own a record share of stocks. Are you ready for this? The wealthiest 10%, okay, the wealthiest 10% of Americans, these are my neighbors here in the disgustingly bloated economic bastion of Highland Park, Texas. The wealthiest 10% Americans own 93% of all stocks. 10%. You ain't in the 10%. You know, your rich friend, you're like, my friend, he's a day trader and he's rich. He ain't rich. He ain't in the top 10%. What do you mean he ain't rich? He's got $1 million house. Yeah, YouTube kids have $1 million houses. Check back in with me when they're 55. Then let's see if they're still rich. This story is disgusting. The stock market. We're always led to believe, oh, if it's good for the stock market, it's good for America. No, it's not. It's good for the top 10%. About 93% of U.S. household stock market wealth is held by only 10% of the population. Why this matters? It's a crucial bit of context to keep in mind amid the heavy hype. So just, here's my point, because you know I'm not a partisan guy. My point is this. Every time you champion your side, that side, whatever it is, whatever your candidate you like, you got to understand, the real issue is the money in this country. We are all a bunch of puppets on a string. We're led to believe that we have choice. We're led to believe that we have a say in all this, but we don't. Top 10% owns 93% of the stocks. So think about it this way. So when the stock market needs to be fixed or needs some government help or whatever like that, just remember who they're actually helping. They're not helping regular people. Screw the stock market. If these people want to gamble with our pension funds, they're going to blow it. They better not escape unscathed. They better lose everything. Let's blow up the stock market. If honestly, it's only, well, you can't do that because our entire system is based on it. Well, our entire system is messed up. Our entire system, we might need a complete reboot. I mean, at least this should upset you. This should just upset everyone. We used to live in a country where a middle-class dude could put 3 kids through college working at the General Motors plant. Now, I know that that's changed, and I know that the actual job has changed. Technology has made it, But there are other things. There are other fields that have emerged that we can have a vibrant middle class again, but we won't. We'll never have a vibrant middle class as long as 10%, the 10% wealthiest people in this country own 93% of the stock market. That just allows us the veneer of a middle class, not even a thriving middle class. The middle working class has been completely forsaken in this country. And I'm sorry, again, I don't know what you consider rich. I consider a billionaire rich, okay? Your friend who has $10 million, I don't consider him rich. I used to, but now I've seen the extravagance of gratuitous wealth. There's a difference. There's a difference between, like, when I was growing up, I had a friend, his dad owned 2 car dealerships, and to me, they were rich. They went to Europe on a vacation once. Oh my God, they were rich. I didn't realize that dude who owned 2 car dealerships probably had a money guy on top of him and then a company on top of him. And there's always somebody richer. The rich, there's only 10%. They own 93% of the stock market. Okay, I'm going to move on because I'm getting a little bit. You know how I feel about that. I got no problem with a guy who builds up from the ground. I got no problem with a guy who has an idea, who works his ass off to popularize the idea, and then who makes a lot of money. That's why, shockingly enough, I don't have a problem with, dare I say his name? No, never mind. We'll move on. All right. I will say this. I hate the billionaire class. I like Mark Cuban. He did it the right way. He did it. He came up with an idea. He benefited from timing. A lot of it is timing. If Mark Cuban is 10 years older or 10 years younger, he's not a billionaire today. It was all about timing. It was his idea. It was something that he wanted. He wanted to listen to Indiana basketball games when he wasn't in Indiana. Went to University of Indiana, became a Hoosier fan, wanted to listen to the games, couldn't figure out a way to do it. Just so happened that he had this desire at a time when he was, young and the computer things were starting and he had an interest in that and he figured out a way to stream Indiana games and that turned into broadcast.com and that sold to Yahoo and now he's a billionaire. It was timing. I don't know if Yahoo would still do that deal in 2023, knowing what they know now, because didn't they just take broadcast.com and shutter it? Like it was just, anyway, see, that's the kind of billionaire I don't have a problem with because that person did. I got a problem with like the third generation, Winston Thurgood Marshall the Fourth. I have a problem with that dude. And that dude comprises probably about 9% of the 10% we're talking about. I see it in this neighborhood. I saw there's a dude, there's like a 24-year-old hipster dude and his young hippie wife, and they live in like a $5 million house. And I don't know, they got like these weird they got like the, inclusion sticker on their car, and they're different than the other young couples that live in this neighborhood. The other young couples that live in this neighborhood are all obviously Wharton school grads and they work at a major firm in Dallas. These people are different. And I look at these people and I'm like, look at this dude. This dude, the dad bought that house for him. Dad bought that $5 million house across from the park. So I don't have respect for that guy. But anyway, I feel like I need to make that clear. I don't have a problem with rich guys. I got a lot of friends who are rich guys. And you know what? My friends who are rich guys, the guys who I love, the guys who I admire, none of them inherited a dime. They did it with hustle. They did it with grit, and they did it on their own. Well, a little help. Everybody needs help. Everybody needs help from somewhere. But when that help is like 99.9% from daddy, yeah, and I got a problem. All right, let's move on. What do we got here? Trump. We'll talk a little bit about Trump because there was a big court case. Trump, the judge, closing arguments in his fraud trial. Trump was there again today. He made a comment. The judge has announced that probably not going to rule on this till later this month. So there you go. Anybody looking for something there? Not till later this month. Big news. We got some big football news. Let's run through these very quickly, shall we? Bill Belichick is out as head coach of the New England Patriots. This has been rumored for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I got to be honest with you, I never thought it was real. I just thought, oh, they must need something to talk about. I couldn't imagine Bill Belichick, but it is time. I remember Mike Ditka when he was fired from the Bears. That was after like 15 years. This is after like 24 years. That's the only thing that I have. Maybe Phil Jackson. I remember when Phil Jackson left the Bulls. That was big. That was big, but not, and this is different. Belichick is different. He says that he wants to keep coaching. So there's all these stories of Bill Belichick to, I'll tell you, you want to hear my prediction? Ready? Because this is just crazy enough. This just is so on brand. You want to hear? Here we go. I don't want to upset you guys, okay? But I think the Cowboys are going to lose on Sunday to the Packers. I know. You're all very angry hearing that. Now, why do I say that? I say that because for the last 3 consecutive weeks, I've watched the Green Bay Packers play. I have also watched the Dallas Cowboys play. Man, the Green Bay Packers are getting really good at a really scary time. The Green Bay Packers, they spent some time early in the season trying to figure it out with Jordan Love, but guess what? And it kills me to say this because I'm talking about the Green Bay Packers, and you people have to know that I never root for the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers look damn unbeatable at this point. The way that Jordan Love is playing, now the defense, I think Dak can put up easily 30 on that defense. But can the Cowboys defense then, hold the pack? I don't know. I think this is going to be an upset. I think this is going to be. Anyway, here's my prediction. Are you ready for this? Day after the Packers beat the Cowboys, Monday of next week, Mike McCarthy will be fired. By Tuesday or Wednesday, Bill Belichick will be in Dallas. Yeah. Oh, why? Why do I say this? Pugs, that's crazy. No, first of all, it's not really crazy. Bill Belichick loves a nice, shiny object, and the Dallas Cowboys are certainly the shiniest object in the NFL. Can Bill Belichick and Jerry Jones get together Can they get along? I guarantee you both of them believe they can. I bet you Bill Belichick, when somebody says, well, aren't you afraid of dealing with Jerry Jones? I'm pretty sure that Bill Belichick goes, shouldn't Jerry Jones be afraid of dealing with me? I mean, it's going to be that kind of situation. So it'll work well. It'll work well for a little while. There'll be problems. It'll be great for sports radio in this town. But how do I know this? He did this with Tuna. He did this with Parcells. This is the exact same thing. This is the playbook. This is what Jerry Jones loves. Jerry Jones loves the hire that will get the nations at what is going to bring more. Do you remember Bill Parcells' first season with the Cowboys? Oh my God, the NFL went nuts on that. Big Tuna to Dallas, and he was the big thing. They were talking about the Dallas Cowboys every single. What is Bill Parcells going to do? Is he going to be able to turn around the Cowboys? That was the conversation, and that's what Jerry loves. Jerry loves that because it's good for the brand. Because ultimately, while I think he's a horseshit football man, Jerry Jones is a brilliant businessman. And he knows that the true business isn't winning football games. The true business is keeping the Dallas Cowboys the most valuable franchise in professional sports. That's what he knows. And Bill Belichick keeps that going. I don't know it's a great hire. You're probably going to lose Dan Quinn. So now you're going to bring in Bill Belichick and Bill Belichick's defense. Bill Belichick has had an incredible run over 24 years of really spotlighting offensive coordinators, young offensive minds, because Bill is more of a defensive guy. He doesn't get involved in that. So look at all the offensive coordinators from Bill Belichick that have gone on to be head coaches. None of them successful, mind you. Well, any of them? I'd have to really drill down on that. But also look at all of the backup quarterbacks from the New England Patriots over this time period that have gone on. And why is that? It's because they had Tom Brady. That's why. So my point is this. I'm not entirely sold on Bill Belichick. I remember when he was the Browns coach and didn't have Tom Brady. I think they got lucky on a 5th-round kid out of Michigan who turned out to be the GOAT. And I think that Bill Belichick may have rode that. I have the same criticism for Phil Jackson. What? How dare you? Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson went from coaching Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, two of the best at their position, two of the best to have ever played the game, to having Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, two of the best to ever play the game. So, when they say Phil Jackson was like the greatest mind, I don't know. I give more credit to guys like Tex Winter, who was his assistant coaches. Who else? Johnny Bach, another one of his. I don't know. So that's how I've always kind of felt about Phil Jackson. I like Phil Jackson. I wouldn't return those 6 world titles that we won with the Bulls in the 90s for anything. He was a big part of that. But if I'm objectively going, was he a great coach? I have to say, I don't know. Let me see Phil Jackson with a bunch of scrubs, and then I'll let you know if he's a good coach. Because he was pretty good when he had the best players on the planet. So same could be said for Bill Belichick. But remember, I just told you, I think he's going to be a Cowboy coach. If the Cowboys lose on Sunday, McCarthy is out on Monday. Bill Belichick's in Dallas by Wednesday. Mark it. This from the guy who predicted the Rangers would win the World Series. Why am I not doing sports talk? You know what I mean? Why am I not doing sports talk? I can do it. Here's why I don't do it. Because I think that's so limiting. Like I would just drive myself nuts trying to come up with sports takes. And then I can't sleep at night because I'm so inauthentic in almost every walk of my outside life. This is like the only place where I get to be authentic. And I think that that's why I wouldn't want to do sports talk. But I could do sports talk. I don't want to. Anyway, point is, let's move on. More sports talk. Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawks. He's gone. That shocked the NFL. Same day that Bill Belichick is gone, Pete Carroll is gone. Pete Carroll, was he on the hot seat? I don't know. I thought everybody was kind of like, hey, look what Pete Carroll did with Geno Smith. I thought I thought Pete Carroll was pretty okay. Here's what the rumor mill is saying. And this would make sense. This would make sense why they would make a big far right turn and gack Pete Carroll after he's an icon up there. He's got to stay in the office. And then the next question was, will he have any say over the new hire? No. So I don't know what his status is with the Seahawks. He's going to stay as a consultant in the front office. Oh, a consultant. So will he be overseeing the hiring of his replacement? No. I just think they want him gone. I think that Jody Allen, the new owner of the Seahawks, I think she's not the new owner. She's the daughter of the former owner, but she wants her imprint on this team, and I think she wants him gone. I think Dan Quinn is going there, unless there's been a news story about him going to Atlanta or back to Atlanta today, which I just couldn't see happening. But hey, the NFL is crazy. There was a report yesterday that said that Dan Quinn, Cowboys defensive coordinator, was interested in Seattle, was interested in him, and that might account for them firing Pete Carroll, because the interview process now for people like Dan Quinn, and Dan Quinn is a very highly thought after head coaching candidate. The coaching process begins, and you gotta be involved from the very beginning. So they gacked Pete Carroll, and nobody saw it coming, and there you have it. Pete Carroll is a very charismatic guy. He can be on TV again. He'll be on TV. He'll be good. He'll be on one of those daises wearing a fancy suit. He's a very witty, he's a good guy. He's a good character. He's a good TV character. Pete Carroll, no longer the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. How about this one? On the same damn day, Nick Saban is out at the University of Alabama, retired. I don't mean to say out like they fired him. He's the most important person in the state of Alabama for the last 10 years. That's not a joke. He's certainly the highest paid state official. Nobody in the state, because Alabama head football coach at the University of Alabama, you are considered a government employee, a state employee. You employed by that university, which is a part of the state system. You just retired. Why not? Why not? Please. He was old when he was with LSU. What does he got? What does Nick Saban need to keep doing this for? Nick Saban doesn't want to sit in some kid's funky living room in Jackson, Mississippi all summer. He want to do that. He's done. And honestly, he hadn't been doing that in years. That's Nick Saban. He makes the phone call while the lesser recruiters. But what I'm saying is, it's a difficult life being a college football coach. It's a young man's game. It's a man who's going to be willing to. And when you're Nick Saban and you've accomplished this much, isn't it weird that Nick Saban and Bill Belichick are both looking for work on the same day? I hear podcast. Why is that interesting? Because they're very close friends. They are very close friends. And it was always interesting. The most successful professional head coach and the most successful collegiate head coach of the last 20 years, they're buddies. All right, that's going to do it. There you have it. So big coaching changes around the league, both at the pro and collegiate level. Bill Belichick out in New England. Pete Carroll. Mike Vrabel, maybe, right? Isn't that what they're thinking in New England? Mike Vrabel, legendary linebacker for the Patriots, played under Belichick. Been leading the Titans, but Vrabel might be. Did he get fired? Did Vrabel get fired? I can't keep track of everybody who's been fired. Whatever. They're saying Vrabel might go there. Ron Rivera still in the wind. The old riverboat Ron, Chico, as we call him, he's still in the wind. Pete Carroll's out there. Nick Saban ain't doing anything. Nick Saban's the only one who was like, yeah, on my own terms, I'm walking. All right, moving on. More sports stuff. This is an interesting story. This isn't sports. This is more culture, and it's about the culture of sports and how it's kind of changing. Concerns the Pat McAfee and Aaron Rodgers situation. To get you all caught up, Aaron Rodgers does a paid weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee ESPN and live stream show, I believe Tuesdays throughout the football season, and this is important, and throughout the postseason. Aaron Rodgers, he's a provocative dude. He says things on that show, and it gets a lot of attention, sometimes bad attention. The most recent was some dust up he had with Jimmy Kimmel over, you're a pedophile, you're not a pedophile. Never said he was a pedophile. That old silliness. Who cares? But his comments have started to cause people at ESPN to be a little bit, do we really need this? Do we really need this kind of nuttiness? So Pat McAfee yesterday announced that Aaron Rodgers would no longer be a part of the football shows on Tuesday. He was done. And yesterday, and just because I want to be completely clear about this, yesterday I had a story that was supposedly from Josh Schrock, NFL Network or whatever he's from. he had pointed out that Aaron Rodgers was only paid as a paid contributor through the regular season, that he hadn't signed a deal to do the postseason. So I went on the air yesterday, and again, full disclosure, I'm like, people are saying ESPN fired Aaron Rodgers. They didn't fire him. Regular season's done. He only had a contract to do the regular season. So there's been more complicated than that, because as it always is, there's some more moving parts. So last year, Aaron Rodgers had the same deal that he had this year, but he did continue into the postseason, and they worked out a deal. He ended up getting paid for the postseason. I assume it was expected by all parties concerned that that would be the same thing this year. He's only paid for the regular season. And then, if we go to the playoffs and want to keep doing it, then so it's a way for the advertiser, if they feel it's not working or they're paying Aaron too much, to be able to bail out before they go through the last month or 6 weeks of the season, whatever the playoffs are. So it's kind of true and kind of not true. Like last year, he was only contracted through the regular season, but did appear for postseason shows. This year, he was contracted through the regular season. The regular season ended. Coincidentally, it ended. His last appearance was very provocative. And then they say he's not going to be back. Now, maybe that has to do with they expected to do the same kind of deal they did last year and just negotiate it here now. And they're not going to do that now. I don't know what it is. But there is internal fights going on at ESPN. Between Pat McAfee, who is the big star of ESPN. Make no mistake, he's the big star. He's the highest paid guy on the stage. $85 million for 5 years. I think Sage Steele or what, I don't know, is she even still there? I don't know. I don't know anybody else on ESPN. I know Tony Kornheiser ain't making $85 million over 5 years. So don't get it twisted. Pat McAfee carries the biggest stick at ESPN. I've worked in media for years. I've worked in major market media. I've worked around stars. Don't get it twisted. He who gets paid the biggest bag of gold carries the biggest stick in the hallway. And that's what Pat McAfee is. And Pat McAfee is firing back on ESPN executives that he feels are not supportive of the show. It says here, last week, Pat McAfee, the Indianapolis Colts punter turned new media shock jock and ESPN star. Can I just address something here? I know a little thing about shock jockery, having been reared in the format of shock jockery and spending a good deal of my partnership with Kelly pushing back on the label of shock jock. Pat McAfee ain't a shock jock. Maybe if you don't know what a shock jock is, a shock jock is someone who emerged in the 1980s and the 1990s who used a form of blunt opinion talk to say things that were either one, sexually outside the bounds of what was considered, community standards, or two, unnecessarily cruel. So the shock jock, what the shock jock did was he either was like, yeah, man, I like them big old titties. He either did that and everybody laughed and people clutched their pearls going, he said titties on the radio. So shock jocks were either that, and then also they had this whole thing where it's like, yeah, man, what are you, gay? What are you, a homo? And no fat chicks, man. Shock jocks. That's what shock jocks were. And I don't mean to reduce them all to that caricature, but unfortunately, the landscape of American radio became littered with really bad shock jocks. Now, there were people who were just incredible radio talents who were labeled shock jocks. Some earned. Howard Stern definitely deserves the label of shock jock. Steve Dahl, shock jock. Tom Likas was certainly a shock jock. Pat McAfee is not a shock jock. Pat McAfee is neither sexually explicit. Outside of the way that a bunch of good kids would be sexually explicit. They don't objectify. They don't do sex. It's the Pat McAfee show. They do locker room dudes talking sports. That's what they do. He's also not cruel or mean, which is the other. When you think of a shock jock, you think of somebody who's like, yeah, man, you sound ugly on the phone. I bet you're a big fat girl. That's what a shock jock is. That's not Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee's really nice. He's really optimistic and joyful. What he is a big, dumb, obnoxious friendly guy. That's what he is. If people don't like McAfee, don't like him because he's big, dumb, and obnoxious. It's not because he's mean, cruel, or, shockingly sexually explicit. So don't call him a shock jock. What he is a provocateur and a charismatic new media entertainer. You don't know what he is. So stop giving him labels from the 1980s. Last week, Pat McAfee, the Indianapolis Colts punter turned new media shock jock and ESPN star, directly criticized a powerful executive at the Disney-owned network by name. He called him a rat. Not only was Mr. McAfee not fired, he seemingly was not punished at all. This shocked current and former ESPN executives and employees. His show is a freewheeling shout fest reminiscent of Don Imus and Howard Stern. No, it is not. It is not even remotely reminiscent of Don Imus or Howard Stern. And might I be even more of a prick and point out that there is nothing even remotely similar about Don Imus and Howard Stern, you lazy fuck. That's just lazy writing. He's nothing like Howard Stern. Pat McAfee is, again, this is people frustrated because they see something that they've never seen before that seems to be connecting with a younger demographic that they desperately want to attach themselves to, but I have no clue how to do it. He's a shock jock. No, he's not. He's something new. He's something different. He's something new. You don't know what he is. Maybe there will be a term for it. Maybe some Rolling Stone writer will write a piece about him. And in that piece, they'll use a phrase and that will become shock jock. That will become what they're called. But we don't know what a Pat McAfee is. Influencer. I mean, Jesus. Anyway, the point of this article is that in the past, whenever anybody went public against an ESPN executive, being on a podcast or in an interview, they were always just kicked to the curb immediately. Everybody from Keith Olbermann being suspended to Dan Patrick being suspended. Jamel Hill chick was kicked off the station or the network. So ESPN has always been about the brand first. Name the biggest star in ESPN history. I would say it's possibly Dan Patrick. He ain't there anymore. Why? Because ESPN doesn't want stars. Well, they got one. They got one and they paid for one. And this guy, Pat McAfee, being able to go on his show, and trash a high-ranking ESPN executive with zero repercussions has a lot of people who used to work at ESPN going, well, it ain't the old ESPN. No, it ain't the old ESPN. No, not at all. Sorry, old heads, but ESPN is taking on water. ESPN pioneered sports in the cable era, the cable in the satellite distributed era. Man, were they cutting edge in 1989. It's 2023. ESPN as a brand cannot still exist to the level that it did simply through cable distribution and satellite. So they have to make a concerted effort to penetrate the new digital area. And that's where people like Pat McAfee are going to come in. I mean, geez, you could see Dude Perfect hosting Sports Center in a year. Seriously, that's where it's going. Do you like it? Who cares? They see this as the only way to keep their price where they need it. And that's what this is all about. So does Pat McAfee seem to have some sort of imbalanced power at ESPN that no other ESPN personality has ever had? Yeah. And it's deserved, because never in the history of ESPN has it been, we're going to go out of business. So yeah, they're changing things. Also, as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, they said that he won't be back next year either. Oh, and also, can I just, this whole thing, I totally get, there's a hatred for Pat. I like him because I applaud the new, right? I applaud whatever is going to push this to the next level. And he is obviously that. People today, 40-year-old guys who are like, I don't get Pat McAfee. They're the same people in 1985 who were like, this Howard Stern is vulgar. You're the same people. You're the same people. You'll see. You'll come around. Doesn't matter. You'll get used to it. It's different. Again, when things are different, we're uncomfortable with it because we don't understand it. We can't rely on our programming to do what comes next, and it's different. And now we're confused by it, and the confusion leads to fear, and the fear leads to anger. And that's why you hate Pat McAfee. It's all that. And some of you just don't like him. Okay, I will open the door for that. Some of you, it's just not my thing, and that's fine. That's understandable. But I think a lot of the hatred comes from people who've never watched him, don't understand it. They've seen like 30-second clips, or something where he's, doing a body slam at WWE. They don't get it. Oh my God, this dude's doing everything. This guy is checking all the boxes. He is out there crushing. $85 million in 5 years. That ain't punter money. That ain't NFL punter money. Got to respect that too. Walked away from the NFL. He didn't get cut. He was a good punter. He was the Indianapolis Colts. He didn't get cut. He said, nah, I think I can make more money doing digital media because I've got an idea. And guess what? He was right. No punter in the history of the NFL has made $85 million over the course of 5 years, but that's the no cut, by the way, no cut, fully guaranteed contract that he signed with ESPN. All right. So here's one now that we can get into. We're going to get away from the sports stuff. We're going to get into, do I got to mention this first? Yeah, I got to mention this first. All right. Chris Christie. He's gonzo. See you later, my guy. He's out. He ain't going to run for president anymore. He's made his money. Again, he probably made the money when he started this whole thing. He sat down with his family. He said, now look, there's no chance in hell that I'm going to win this thing. But we're going to get a bunch of stupid people who believe in me to send me like, $20 at a time. And, if we do this right, we could make a couple of $1 million this year. So let's run for president, team. Yay. And now he's done because he can't win. And people aren't giving him money anymore. So he's going to close up shop. He's going to start a political action committee, and he's going to oversee those funds the way George Santos did when he bought a Bugatti and paid for OnlyFans sessions with PAC money. All right. But it's legal if you're not currently sitting. Like if you're not, he's a private citizen. He can do what he wants with that money. If in his estimation, the best way to disperse these funds for this political action committee, if the best way is for him to be driving around in a new Porsche, then you know what? Who's to say this political expert doesn't know what impresses the great unwashed? Okay, so Christie's out. So how about this one? Out of Missouri, this story's been percolating for a couple of days. A teacher, we got to show you this one because we always like to see. Because I think there is a way we feel, and I think there is a way that is real. And the way we feel about this might be icky. But then there's the way that's real, and I want to show you the way that's real, okay? This comes out of Missouri, another teacher sex scandal, a teacher having sex with a 16-year-old student. But there's a wrinkle to this story. First, let's get a look at her, all right, because we like to do that. This is, by the way, a first-year teacher, I believe. I think she was only there for 1 year. She taught math, which is oddly hot. It's like hotter that she's a math teacher. Okay, French, being the hot French teacher, that's probably the best if you were to draw up the scenario of, being seduced by a sexy teacher. French teacher would be the best. But why am I taking France? See, I can't even have this fantasy because I would never take that course. So, okay, so math is pretty hot because, she's strict. There are absolutes in math. Teacher slapped with rape charges after having sex with teen while using other students as lookouts. The wrinkle to this story is that the boy's father, the 16-year-old boy who was having sex with this teacher, the boy's father has been arrested. Because apparently the boy's father knew about it and didn't go to the police and, create this whole hubbub. We'll talk about it. But let's get a look at her. Let's take a look at her. All right. Mrs. Carmack is her name. Here, we'll do it this way. Sorry. I got some pop-ups that I'm dealing with, so just give me a moment. Boop, boop, boop. Let's get a look at her. Let's see what we're dealing with here. First of all, it's obviously a tragedy. Hold on, let me flip my programming switch. This is appalling. She's a predatory monster. This has to stop. This poor boy is going to need decades and decades of therapy. He's going to suffer from PTSD from this. Okay, turning the programming off. Let's watch this. Let's see who this monster woman is who had sex with the 16-year-old boy. I remember when I was 16. All right, there she is. There she is right there. Look at her. Here's what I find most interesting about these things. I like when they look normal. Like when they look normal, it like just makes the story even more. Like when they look messed up, you're like, well, how did that person even get a teaching certificate? When they look, but when they look normal, like look at her. She's a doll. She's darling. This horrid, monstrous sexual predator. There she is. All right, there she is. So this is the teacher. We're going to leave her picture up just so we can get to the meat and potatoes of this story. This comes out of Missouri. As I said, a Missouri teacher has been charged with statutory rape for allegedly having sex with a 16-year-old student while other students served as lookouts, with the boy's father also facing a felony charge for condoning. Hold on. They used a programming word for condoning the disturbing relationship. I don't, as a father of a 14-year-old boy, I would be troubled by this. And I would be like, okay, what's going on? Here's why I would be troubled. I would be troubled because I would immediately assume that the woman, not so much a predator and a monster in that area, but crazy and shows incredibly poor judgment. So that would be my concern. My concern, honestly, would not be for the fragile sexual state of my young son. I wouldn't. And I am completely comfortable telling you that I would not feel the same way about my daughter. If my daughter was having sex with the gym coach, I would murder that gym coach. My son having sex with his attractive young math teacher, I don't want to murder the attractive young math teacher. I think I want her out of the school, again, because like I said, that's a really poor decision that she's making. And what other poor decision? This seems like a big one to be made so poorly. But it's different. And I'm sorry. Am I a misogynist for thinking that a young girl who is in an imbalanced power dynamic with a much older male authority figure, do I think that that's a little bit different than a horny 16-year-old boy banging the hot teacher? I do. And you do too. That's the thing, you do. But it's our programming that makes us go, oh, she needs to be in jail forever. She needs to never teach again. And she probably needs to have somebody go over her brain a time or two about, these decisions that she's made. She was married. And she had her own kids. All right, let's get into this story. Let's find out more about her. I'll rant as is appropriate. Hope you enjoy. LaQuay High School math teacher, Haley Carmack. Oh, it's even a cute girl name. Haley Carmack, 26 years old. She was arrested in Garden Ridge, Texas. Where's Garden Ridge? I know Garden Ridge is up there by Lake Lewis. Where's Garden Ridge, Texas? She's from Missouri. She came down to Texas over the holidays. She got busted here. As she was leaving town in Missouri, everybody was like, she's sleeping with a kid. Garden Ridge, Texas. This couldn't be the Garden Ridge up there off,
According to Dallas Morning News, Lewis, Garden Ridge is officially changing its...
Hold on. Let me see where it is. I don't know. It's somewhere out there by the Rolling Oaks Mall. I don't know what that is. Northcliffe, Selma. Hold on. Google Maps is taking a little bit of time. I don't know where it is. Is it like outside San Antonio? Is that what we're looking at? Yeah, it looks like, okay, so it's between San Antonio and New Braunfels. That's where she was. She was up there in Minnesota or Missouri. She's teaching, having sex with a 16-year-old, using other students as lookouts. Why? Because she's having sex with him at the school. Also, apparently, she would go over to the kid's house at night and have sex with him in his bedroom when his dad was there. Now, again, I think this dad probably played it a little bit too cool, dad, for my tastes, but I don't know that I would allow that to happen. But that's another reason why he was arrested as well, the father. A Missouri teacher has been charged. We talked about that. Statutory rape. Boy's father also facing a felony charge for condoning the disturbing relationship. LaQuay High School math teacher Haley Clifton Carmack, 26, was arrested in Garden Ridge, Texas on Friday after she was suspected of fleeing the state of Missouri to avoid arrest warrants. Allegations of the sex crimes committed by Clifton Carmack, that's what she's going as. Apparently, that's her. Apparently, she wants to destroy not only her married name, but also her given birth name, family. Allegations of the crimes committed by Clifton Carmack first arose on December 7th, 2023. A fellow student reported the alleged illicit relationship to the school's resource officer, who immediately contacted the Pulaski County Sheriff's Department, court documents show. The witness then met with law enforcement officials to whom he showed photographs of his classmate with scratches on his back. The witness alleged that the scratches were from Haley after the confidential victim had sex with her. In the driveway of the witness's home. We're not gonna see what the dude looks like, but you know that he's like Zac Efron, right? He's like high school Zac Efron. This kid is, man, look, I knew a dude when I was in high school who was sleeping with and in a relationship with a 25-year-old Chicago lovable cheerleader. He's like 17 years old. He's 17 years old. He's driving downtown and staying at this apartment of this girl who's a cheerleader for the Chicago Bulls. She's 25 years old. So that's 17 and 25. So in this case that we're talking about here, it's 24 and 16. So it's just a year earlier for both. We didn't think anything of it. As a matter of fact, Daryl is his name. Daryl seemed to have no signs of any, like, oh, now I can never have sex with a normal girl. In fact, it was just the opposite. It played into his already supreme sense of self-confidence. The only way that at 16 you can pull this off is you have to already be a bit of a dude. You have to be a bit of a guy. You have to know the ways of women. So in that regard, I think it's completely different than a pretty young, innocent girl being seduced by a male gym coach who has authority over her. I can tell you in the case of Daryl, I can tell you in his case that he was just a stud. He was just like Richard Hunter. Ooh, forgot about this one. Richard Hunter, former Dallas-Fort Worth radio talk show host, the epitome of the bon vivant, the man about town. Richard Hunter has been playing in bands. He's a bass player. He's before he got into radio, he was in some successful bands. He's a bass player. He had been playing in clubs since he was 14 years old. He's been playing bass in clubs, in bar bands since he was 14 years old. When he was 16 years old, he was in a relationship with a 30-year-old cocktail waitress. I don't know that Richard Hunter has been traumatized for life. And again, I know that this is, well, you're being a hypocrite. Yeah, I'm being a hypocrite. No, wait, I'm not being a hypocrite here because it is different for boys and girls. It is completely different. Richard Hunter, when he was playing in a band at 16 years old in bars and dating a 30-year-old cocktail waitress, when he was doing that, it wasn't the cocktail waitress who was like, hey, little boy, here's some candy, get in the vent. It wasn't that. He was a confident 16-year-old stud of a young boy. Now, what does it say about the women in these cases? It says that they've got some pretty poor decision-making skills because they don't seem to think all that much about having sex with an underage person. But I think it's different. I think it's different between a boy and a girl. So that brings us to the case of the father, okay? The dad has been in what is the first of its kind. I don't believe this has happened before. We've seen a whole bunch of these teachers seducing students. I've never heard of the dad being arrested. Never. The witness also claimed the math teacher had been in trouble with the school administrators in the past for being too close with students, I'll say. Clifton Carmack, a recently divorced mother of two, she's going through some things, would often wear tight or low-cut shirts to show off her headlights and tight leggings that showed off her camel toe. Okay, so she's one of these. She knows she's hot and she's dressing for it. The witness told investigators, well, she's going through a divorce. She's 24 years old. She's taking her fashion tips from a bunch of provocatively dressed 18-year-old girls. Have you ever seen 18-year-old girl? Have you seen high school girls these days and how they dress? I know, middle-aged white guy. Have you seen how teen girls dress? The witness told investigators the victim was the reason that her divorce was pushed through and that Haley had wanted a divorce due to her husband only wanting to do butt stuff. Okay. All right. So she's having an affair with the 16-year-old boy because apparently the 16-year-old boy wants to do more than butt stuff. And that was her complaint about her husband. Her husband just wanted butt stuff. Detectives confronted the teacher on December the 8th following the allegations, but she denied having any sexual relationship with any students. Of course she did. Police confiscated her phone, but could not access its contents until a warrant was granted. After the warrant was issued, police found text messages that showed an alleged relationship was going on between the 16-year-old student and the educator. Clifton Carmack left Missouri to visit family in Texas around December 23rd. That makes sense. Say she's fleeing. She was talked to by police on the 8th. She left on the 23rd. If she was fleeing, I would think she left on the 9th. 23rd, going home to Texas. Whatever could she be going home to Texas on the 23rd of December for? She just went home for Christmas. If I'm her lawyer, that's what I'm saying. She wasn't, Your Honor. She wasn't fleeing. It's Christmas. What, do you not believe in Jesus, Your Honor? Yeah, you do that. Police interviewed individuals living at the residence that Haley was previously living at in Missouri. Apparently she lived with roommates, which is fine. She's 24. They shared that she had moved to Texas to live with her family down there and were not sure if she was ever going to return. Those are the roommates. You would think the roommates would know more considering, they're roommates. Now they've lost, a third of their rent? Warrants were issued for the teacher's arrest soon after. Following her arrest in Texas on Friday, she was charged with first-degree endangering the welfare of a child. I get it. Second-degree statutory rape. I guess. Sexual contact with a student. That one's for sure. And fourth-degree child molestation. See, now that one, I don't know what the fourth degree means, but I know when you put the word child and molestation next to someone's name, doesn't look good. She didn't molest him. She's a freaky, weird chick. I mean, I guess technically she molested him because we draw that line of when what's legal and what's not legal. The alleged misconduct is inexcusable and does not meet the professional standards for who cares what they said. Of course, the school said that. All right, now let's look at Dad. Let's take a look at Dad because I like Dad. Dad's the one who knew what was going on and didn't really say anything. In fact, here's what he has to say about it. Dad says that, hold on, let's show Dad. There's Dad. Look at him. Yeah, look at Dad. Can't be bothered with this nonsense. Dad is trying to pick up hours wherever he can. Dad, and by the way, Dad knows exactly how many beers are in the fridge. So you better look out. Dad can't be bothered with this. Dad, here's what Dad said. This is not what he said. This is what I assume he said. This dude here, just looking at him, and remember, I'm an amazing judge of character. This dude finds out that his son is banging the hot math teacher, and he's like, hey, that's good on you, boy. I mean, and I totally get it. I mean, I don't get that. My son and I are very close, but I do think that my son respects me enough to not tell me if he's sleeping with his teacher. Like I think my son has enough respect for me to know that if I was given this information, that I would do shit that would probably upend his apple cart. So my kid wouldn't tell me. I think my kid would be like, I'm not sleeping with my teacher. And I could even try and trick him. Like I'd be like, really? Because she's kind of hot, man. Really? You're not hitting it? You're not? Like he wouldn't even fall for that. Anyway, these two, this dad seems like, whatever. This looks like a dad who smokes weed with his kids. Can we just be honest? He does. We all know those dads. We've all seen those dads. We've all been to high school. We ended up on a picnic table after a party with some dude's 50-year-old dad rolling joints. It was always weird. In a shocking twist, new charges have been brought against the boy's father, who allegedly revealed to others that he was aware of his son's illicit relationship with the teacher. Mark Crichton. Yeah, he looks like a Mark Crichton. That's a good name for him. Can his middle name be Wayne? Can he be Mark Wayne Crichton? Oh, that's how we do it. We're going to call him that. Mark Wayne Crichton. Mark Wayne Crichton was arrested on Thursday on charges of endangering the welfare of a child. On Wednesday, a second witness revealed they told the teen's father of the alleged wrongdoings, to which he replied that he was aware Clifton Carmack and his 16-year-old son were in a sexual relationship. He was aware of it. Father also allegedly shared that he knew that his son and the math teacher used other students as lookouts to have sex during school hours. Well, he has a good relationship with his boy. Crichton knew of the relationship of his minor child and the 26-year-old teacher, and instead of reporting the information, he continued to cover for them and allowed the relationship to continue, and even allowed Haley to come over to his residence and see the victim while he was present. This according to prosecutors. Now, that's important, the way that that's worded, because it says here he even allowed Haley to come over to the residence and see the victim while he was present. There is nothing there that says that he allowed them to come over and have sex. We're just making that leap because we know they're having sex. But that's not necessarily what's being alleged here. This is just being said to confirm that he was aware of some sort of extracurricular friendship. She even came over to the house. Hold on, we got another picture of Mark Wayne Crichton. Yeah, we got to see more of Mark Wayne. Here we go. Look at him. Oh, yeah, lean back. Look at he's got these guys lean on. He shouldn't be arrested. He shouldn't be arrested. He shouldn't be arrested. This is, man. I mean, it was his duty to make sure she didn't do it to anyone else. Well, I mean, we can have a conversation about that. And I might be willing to say, yeah, if I was aware that there was a teacher making a huge error in judgment like this. See, this isn't just the actual act of what she's doing. This speaks to a mind that we are putting in front of our children and saying, hey, listen to this mind. This mind will guide you. This is a mind that made a choice, to have sex with a 16-year-old, and it's a choice. It's totally a choice. So I question that. So that is troubling. But man, we don't need to open this can of worms. This guy does not need to be in jail, being held on $50,000 bond. That's the story of the hot math teacher who's sleeping with a 16-year-old boy. This is again, I don't know. For me, it's about positioning. It's about power dynamic. It's about a 16-year-old girl who is in a sexual relationship with a grown-ass male gym teacher. That is a different dynamic than a 16-year-old boy who's got a 24-year-old really hot. I mean, that's... Oh, am I being misogynistic for saying, well, what do you mean a woman can't be the aggressor? What do you mean it's not bad? What if the 16-year-old girl was sexually empowered? Oh, stop it. I do adhere to some programming, and some programming still informs me that women in these situations are victims, and the males, depending on the circumstances, may or may not be. In the case of this, I don't know how big of a victim this guy is. She should not teach. I don't know that she should be put in jail, but she should certainly not teach. And we'll move on from this story. We're going to move on from this story because we've got another story that I just wanted to talk about here. This one's starting to be upsetting, but oh my God. You guys, it's been, a couple of months now since Matthew Perry shocked the world by dropping dead? Oh, we loved Matthew Perry. He struggled so much to be sober. His book was so witty. The stories that he told. And then a couple of weeks went by and it was like, nah, he was still a junkie and he died a junkie's death. And we were all like, oh, I'm confused on how to feel about Matthew Perry. People are talking. People are talking. Oh, people are talking. People very close to him are now talking, and they want it out there who the real Matthew Perry was. The real Matthew Perry is not the one that we all mourned the day of his death. The real Matthew Perry sounds like a total piece of shit, a complete piece of shit who was a junkie his entire life, who spent late hours scrolling Tinder and Bumble and all of these things to get young girls to come to his house in the middle of the night and bring him Oxycontin. Apparently, this is a thing that had been going on for a long ass time. Matthew Perry assaulted women, including his ex-fiancée. The Friends actor hurled a table at ex-fiancée after she confronted him about cheating. He also threw live-in sober companion guest against a wall, forcing her to quit. There's a number of charges here. Perry assaulted Hurwitz. Molly Hurwitz was his fiancée. Sweet-looking girl. She looks like she doesn't need to put up with that nonsense. She could probably get another rich, good-looking guy easily. Perry assaulted Molly Hurwitz after she questioned him about a Valentine's gift that he had bought for a girl he'd met on a dating app. He was big on dating girls on dating apps. Sober companion Morgan Moses quit after he pushed her onto a bed during one of his angry meltdowns. Matthew Perry goes on to say Matthew Perry was never clean and had casual hookups deliver Oxycontin to him for years. Okay. He was reclusive. Matthew Perry is a very reclusive guy. He doesn't do much. And it's true. He hasn't done much. He's been reclusive. We figure he's been living off that friend's money. He's reclusive because he's a junkie. He's a reclusive because he's just doing drugs all day. He's pilled out. He's been pilled out for the last 50 years. 40 years, whatever. Friends actor Matthew Perry physically assaulted several women, including his ex-fiancée Molly Hurwitz, in the years leading up to his death. Sources close to the late star have sensationally revealed. These explosive new allegations detail how he threw a coffee table at Hurwitz after she confronted him about cheating in 2021. It also said that he shoved his live-in sober companions. That's something only rich junkies can get. A sober companion is somebody like a dog, but it's a human, and they come and they live with you, and they don't let you do drugs. How much does that pay? Because honestly, I feel like I could be really good at that job. Except you got to fight sometimes. I imagine when you're dealing with a junkie, you're going to have to fight. I don't know if I'd be up for that. Certainly the girl in this case, Morgan Moses, she wasn't. She wasn't up for it. These claims now threaten to tarnish Perry's legacy following his death, aged 54 in October, after overdosing on ketamine. They also paint the darkest picture yet of the star's troubled, reclusive final years. Oh, God. Jeez, they're showing all of these pictures of him just like in the... God! He looks like he's 74. Here, let me show you a picture. This is we didn't see him, and when we did see him for a special occasion, they like the Friends reboot or whatever, they cleaned him up, they put him in a suit, they shoehorned him into a suit. Here, look at this. He just looks terrible. Oh, he's looking so good now that he's sober. All right, so this is Matthew Perry back in 2021. He's been sober for 10 years. Sobriety really agrees with you, Matthew Perry. We all bought it. We're all like, no, he's been sober, dude. He even wrote a book about it. No, he wasn't. Look at him. Doesn't sobriety agree with 2020 Matthew Perry? He looks like a guy who's got his shit together, doesn't he? Stop it. So it's all coming out now. It's all coming out that, yeah, we were allowed to believe what we wanted to believe about Matthew Perry. His lack of doing anything was due not to the fact that he was just above Hollywood, which is how it was portrayed. Matthew Perry only wants to do he's earned a place where he can only do projects that agree with his artistic sense. Oh, shut up. He wasn't doing projects because he couldn't get sober long enough to shoot a scene. Despite a live-in nursing team, Perry met young girls on dating apps and had them deliver drugs to his $6 million mansion. The amount of ketamine found in his body by investigators was similar to levels used to anesthetize patients in the hospital. Perry has since been variously described as incredibly reclusive as well as an angry and mean junkie. Jeez. In his memoir, this is great, because I remember when the memoir came out before he died, I remember thinking, oh, this sounds like a good book. I love Matthew Perry. What? And isn't it great that he's sober? I bought into it all. In his memoir, Perry used the pseudonym Aaron to refer to Morgan Moses, his live-in companion whom he abused. He said in the book that she was his best friend. Oh, what's that flashing thing? Look at that stupid button. Look at that pop-ups. Everything's got to be a pop-up. Get out of here. Sorry about that. In his memoir, Perry used the pseudonym Aaron to refer to Morgan, whose true identity was finally revealed in November. He said of his sober companion, remember, this is the one he beat up and she quit. He said she was his best friend in the book, crediting her with saving his life after his colon burst. However, sources now say that, like the sobriety claims, this was also a total lie. In truth, after Perry attacked Moses, now 37, she quit her job as his sober companion and cut off all contact with him for a full year before the memoir was ever even published. Morgan has declined to comment on Matthew Perry since his passing. Good for her. She's like, I'm not going to look. People say whatever you want to say. Okay, here, there's some pictures of the two of them together. So this, I'll show you. This is the sober companion that lived with him and made him stay off drugs. There's a picture of her. There's a picture of the two of them. Two of them together. This beautiful Malibu beach house. Not a bad gig until he beats you up. All right, what else? It says here, Morgan was no longer working with Matthew. He had a horrible breakdown, and in the heat of the moment, he could not control his emotions. He had a fear that he was going to be abandoned. A source explained, this is when he shoved Morgan into a wall and threw her onto a bed. That's when she left. All right, so they're talking about some. Of course, a friend of Matthew Perry's like, he was going through some stuff, guys. Yeah, he beat her up, but he was going through some stuff. We all go through stuff. We don't become absolved of our terrible deeds simply because we're going through stuff. I imagine most people who are in the midst of perpetrating a terrible deed is going through some stuff. The pair publicly announced the end. Okay, so this is about the Molly thing. Perry is also said to have been abusive to his former fiancée, Molly. The pair publicly announced the end of their engagement after it emerged in the summer of 2021 that Perry had been flirting with a 19-year-old on the dating app Raya. This guy went deep into the dating apps. I struggled. I was like, yeah, he was doing dating apps. I said, I don't even know what Bumble is. It's a Tinder and Bumble. What are those? I don't even know. What's Grindr? That's the gay one, right? I don't know. I don't know what these are. But he's going deep, man. What is Raya? What is the difference between the dating app Raya and the other ones? Do the ones on Raya bring you Oxycontin? Because that seems to be what he was primarily interested in here in these hookups. But according to sources with knowledge of their relationship, Molly Hurwitz, former fiance, actually ended the relationship with Perry back in February after a huge fight on Valentine's Day. She is said to have confronted him after discovering that he had bought a romantic gift for someone that he'd met on another dating app. So he's just, whatever. He threw a coffee table at her and told her that she was crazy. He hated that she dumped him, and he had a terrible abandonment issues. All right. So anyway, then he writes about their breakup in the book, and apparently the way he says it is completely wrong. And he's not. Anyway, it turns out Matthew Perry, people are talking about him, his former fiance, and some other friends who are not going on record, which is troubling, but the former fiance did. Apparently he wasn't a great guy. All right. There we have it. That's basically it for today, guys. We've run through everything that we're going to talk about. There is one last segment that I wanted to do. It's not necessarily a part of everything that you need to know about this very day, which, by the way, I would encourage you again, tip the show if you can. That would be great. I haven't gotten any tips today, but that's okay. He says optimistically. Hold on. So George Carlin is in the news. George Carlin is in the news today, and he's in the news because there's some backlash over an AI created George Carlin concert. There's a new George Carlin concert out there, except it ain't George Carlin. It's AI. So, artificial intelligence, the supercomputer. I don't know what it is either, but when I say it that way, it kind of makes sense. So what the AI computer did was it took all of George Carlin's material throughout the course of his public life as a stand-up comedian, a writer, as all that. Took all of the interviews that he ever gave, all of his takes on everything ever. And then the AI took all of the events and the information and the stuff that's happening today in this world. And the AI created a facsimile of his voice. The AI was able to study his, his cadence and his accents and the way So the AI created a George Carlin special with AI George Carlin doing current jokes. Kelly Carlin, who is somebody who I like a lot, Kelly Carlin is George Carlin's daughter, and she is the chief banner waver of the George Carlin legacy. I mean, anything George Carlin related, Kelly Carlin is involved with. Kelly Carlin is livid over this. She's very angry, and rightfully so. I mean, it's got to be kind of weird. This is her dad. I mean, so many of us love George Carlin, but this is a girl who actually, had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches made by George Carlin. So it's a little bit different. So she's very protective. She doesn't like it. She says, here's what she says. I'll read you what Kelly Carlin has to say about this whole thing. This is from her Twitter account. George Carlin AI special has been eviscerated by the late comedian's daughter. She goes on to say, no machine can ever replace my father's genius. Well, she's right. She's right. Sort of. No machine, but a machine can create based on possibilities and an extensive library of George Carlin's work. A machine can create a facsimile and maybe what the machine creates inadvertently, as is often the case in science, and what if something the machine creates inadvertently creates something else? I don't know, but I get it. This is a personal attack. It's a personal attack. This is a thing that sounds like her dad, talking in the manner that her dad speaks, and it ain't him. And whether or not the jokes are funny, whether or not the jokes are George Carlin caliber, that's up to you. We're going to listen. We're going to listen to it. This whole thing is building up. We're going to listen to it. We're going to listen. We're going to play some of the new George Carlin AI created comedy special. We're going to listen to the jokes and we're going to judge them. Unsurprisingly, the AI Carlin might be able to adequately mimic the sound of the late comedian's voice, but it fails to capture Carlin's wide-ranging comedic brilliance. A sample quoted from Variety's coverage of the controversial special. So here's a line. Here's a line that AI George Carlin says in the new special. If you're tired of seeing Jeff Bezos fly to space in his cock rocket, stop using Amazon for a month. Company goes under, Bezos goes away. AI Carlin says. Now, that's an example. Now, I didn't do it in any kind of George Carlin cadence or attempt to imitate his speaking style, but that seems like a fairly George Carlin-y kind of joke. Whether or not it's a great joke, I don't know. Don't really see it as a joke. I see it as potentially true. And then the review of the joke here from Variety says, that's neither very funny nor accurate. Jeff Bezos it's like, oh, stop it. Really? So this is how we're grading this comedy special off of the joke's validity in the real world? Do we do that for all comedies? Can we go back and watch something like Chris Rock's Bring the Pain and then go, okay, what do you feel about that? Is that a real scenario? Or is he just being a comedian? So that's a bit disingenuous, I think. We're going to listen to it. And we're going to go, is this good or bad? I don't really have an opinion. Kelly Carlin does. Here's what she says. So I'm gonna have to. Geez, look at this. 1 of 3. Oh my God, Kelly, God bless you. She went nuts on this. And why wouldn't she? It's her dad. Somebody's trying to make some money off of, something that fans of her dad might think, oh, this is George Carlin approved. And it ain't. Here's what Kelly Carlin says. My statement regarding the AI-generated George Carlin special. My dad spent a lifetime perfecting his craft from his very human life, brain, and imagination. No machine will ever replace his genius. These AI-generated products are clever attempts at trying to recreate a mind that will never exist again. Let's let the artist's work speak for itself. Humans are so afraid of the void that we can't let what has fallen into it just stay there. Here's an idea. How about we give some actual living human comedians a listen? But if you want to listen to the genuine George Carlin, he has 14 specials that you can find anywhere. Very good. That's from Kelly Carlin, George Carlin's daughter. Good for her. Now, let's listen to the special, shall we? You got to be kind of intrigued, right? I am. All right, here we go. So this is AI George Carlin. We're going to watch it as it appears on YouTube. It's got like millions of views. Nope, there it is. That's the YouTube one. Here we go. Boom. All right. So here's how it starts. Now remember, this is just a computer creating the voice. You're going to hear, it's going to open up with someone who says, hello, my name is Dudesy. Dudesy is the AI. It's not a real person. It's not a thing. I know it's all very confusing. But here we go. All right, so we're going to watch the new George Carlin AI special. This is completely created from artificial intelligence. This is not George Carlin. Here's Dudesy to explain what we're about to experience here. Okay, here we go.
Hello, my name is Dudesy, and I'm a comedy AI. What you're about to hear is my second hour-long special. Before I get started, I just want to let you know very clearly that what you're about to hear is not George Carlin. It's my impersonation of George Carlin that I developed in the exact same way a human impressionist would. I listened to all of George Carlin's material and did my best to imitate his voice, cadence, and attitude, as well as the subject matter I think would have interested him today.
Dudesy says George Carlin the same way every time, the same inflection. This is not George Carlin. Anybody who says that this is George Carlin, it's kind of cumbersome, is my point.
So think of it like Andy Kaufman impersonating Elvis, or like Will Ferrell impersonating George W. Bush. With that said, please enjoy my second hour-long comedy special. I'm calling it George Carlin, I'm Glad I'm Dead.
Right.
And please remember, this is me impersonating George Carlin. This is not George Carlin. Now please give a very warm welcome to George Carlin.
Here we go.
Thank you. I'd like to start off with a heartfelt apology. I'm sorry it took me so long to come out with new material, but I do have a pretty good excuse. I was dead.
Right?
So technically, it wasn't my fault. If you want to blame somebody, you're going to have to blame God. Which we all know is not going to happen. People are always thanking God for the good stuff in their lives, but somehow they conveniently forget that it's the same God who does all the bad shit too. And he does a lot of bad shit. You get a promotion, praise Jesus. You get fired, God is testing me. You meet your soulmate, God brought us together. Your soulmate dumps you, God is bringing me someone else. You survive a tornado, I'm so blessed. 20 other people do not. God wanted them in heaven. It's all bullshit. If he gets credit for the good stuff, then he's got to take the blame for the bad stuff too. You can't thank him for curing your cancer when he was the one that gave it to you in the first place. And don't forget, before he gave you cancer, he had to fucking invent it. What kind of a sick fuck dreams up cancer? And why so many kinds? Skin cancer, blood cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer, kidney cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, lung cancer, and my personal favorite, rectal cancer. Dropping a golf ball-sized tumor in your brain doesn't quite do it for the old man anymore. He has to fuck you in the ass, too. And cancer is just one of many, many, many methods God created out of thin air in order to murder you. You know how much God loves killing people? He loves it so much, he's killed every person that has ever lived.
Okay, so I want to pause this for a moment. It's eerie. It's eerie because, well, first of all, it doesn't, I'm not fooled. If I heard that and I didn't know what it was and someone said, hey, listen to this, I'd go, oh, this comic's definitely influenced by George Carlin. But I wouldn't go, oh, that's new George Carlin. It doesn't, the voice doesn't, it doesn't have it. AI is not perfect. That is not going to convince any George Carlin fan that that's George Carlin. First of all, he's got kind of a Southern accent at some points. At some point, it kind of talks, and it's like, that's... But a lot of this sounds like jokes that I've heard before. This sounds like material, and I'm wondering in my head, I'm like, does this kind of sound? My point is this: it sounds like George Carlin material. It's very in tone with George Carlin's type of material, the content of the material, not the jokes, not the actual money part of the content, not the stuff that makes us all laugh, but the concepts. I could totally see George Carlin ranting on, God gives you this. So let's continue. So far we're listening to the AI generated George Carlin special, which has been released. And I don't think it sounds like George Carlin. I don't think, here's what I will say, being completely open-minded. He's caught me. I'm interested. This is an interesting sort of thing he's talking about, even if I don't think it's entirely original as it feels. It just feels like something that I've heard elsewhere before. Here we go.
Drowning, obesity, starvation, infant death syndrome, old age, car crashes, train crashes, plane crashes, sex, drugs, and the common cold, all for the express purpose of killing you. No matter where you are in the world, God can pull out one of these goodies from his bag of tricks to end your life at any time for no reason other than he just gets off on making people suffer unnecessarily and die arbitrarily. But if you're in America, you're special. God made something just for you, something no other country on the planet gets. It's totally random, not related to your diet, exercise, lifestyle, age, race, gender, sexuality, or genetic predisposition. Of course, I'm talking about mass shootings. Other countries are fine killing one person at a time with guns, but this is America where we do things bigger and better and more often. There are so many mass shootings in America, it's replaced bad traffic as the #1 excuse for being late. Sorry, I missed the morning meeting. A maniac with an AR-15 shot up my son's preschool. He's fine, just grazed. But he did see 5 of his classmates get gunned down in cold blood, so I'm sure he'll be traumatized for the rest of his life in ways I can never fully understand. Anyway, what have we decided?
Okay, now that's very interesting. That is interesting to me. That is the difference between a human comic and a computer. That was some dark shit. That was some dark conceptual comedy that a human with a soul who's in a room with people would not do. They would, or if they were to do it, they would do it differently. Even the AI computer goes, anyway, like the AI computer knew that joke was going to bomb, that joke was a little bit too dark and a little bit too heavy. My kid's preschool, he's making a joke about kids' preschools being shot up. I don't believe a human would do that so casually, and I certainly don't believe that human George Carlin would choose those words. That's what a computer chose, because a computer doesn't get embarrassed at a cocktail party for shit it said. A computer doesn't have that extra added human governor that goes, okay, maybe I can lighten that up a little bit. Computer doesn't get offended. A computer doesn't get its feelings hurt. A computer doesn't have any of that stuff that a human being does. Let's continue. George Carlin. AI George Carlin.
There's a mass shooting every 20 hours in America, and it doesn't seem like anyone is going to do anything about it. Other countries don't have this problem at all. Look at Japan, 127 million people. Last year, 7 were killed by guns. 7. No mass shootings at all. You know what they do? If a Japanese person wants to buy a gun, they have to attend an all-day class, pass a written test, and achieve at least 95% accuracy on a shooting range. And then they have to pass a mental health evaluation, which takes place at a hospital. And then they have to pass a government background check that includes interviews with their friends, family, and co-workers. Hello, sir. Did you know that Bob in accounting wants to buy a gun? No, I didn't know that. Do you think we should let Bob buy a gun? Well, he did just go through a nasty divorce, and yesterday he told me he hates this job so much he wishes he could kill everybody in the building, so maybe not right now. Thanks for your time. That's all we need to hear. No gun for Bob. And if a Japanese citizen passes the tests and the interviews and the background checks, they can only buy shotguns and air rifles. No handguns, no AR-15s. And every 3 years, they have to do that entire process all over again, or they lose the gun. You know what Americans have to do to get a gun? Have the money to buy it. And that's why nothing's ever going to change in America. American politicians care about one thing and one thing only.
So we don't do the stupid politics on this show, and it seems like AI George Carlin is about to get into some stupid politics. So if you'd like to hear more of that, you can go to YouTube. Just put AI George Carlin special, and it'll pop up. It's a 2-hour comedy special. I would be lying to you if I told you that I'm not going to listen to the rest of it, because I will. I'm intrigued. It ain't George Carlin. I don't know that it's particularly funny material. I would say that it is interesting conceptually. Look, I graduated from the Dean Lewis School of Comedy, and I'm looking at his joke setups, and I'm not seeing any clear-cut concept. I'm seeing a guy who probably has the admiration and love of the audience, which is a different position than most comics, so he doesn't have to adhere to the rules of the Dean Lewis School of Comedy. So George Carlin is up there doing it a little bit differently, but I don't hear any real joke concepts in there. I hear commentary. I hear flippant commentary. I hear reductive commentary about the state of America. Very reductive. But I want to listen to the rest of it. So if you want to listen to the rest of it as well, you can find it there on YouTube. AI George Carlin special. It'll pop right up. Okay, guys, that's it. We are out of time. We are done with the show for today. So we're going to move on out. I've got nothing else to do. We got to switch over to James, right? We're all going to jump over. James Parker, 93.3 to, I almost said the Bone. That's because I used to work there. And I used to go, 93.3 to Bone. Here's Judas Priest. No, I never did that. They tried to make me do that. I used to make, when we were at the Bone and a particularly stupid song was coming up, I used to make Kelly do it. Kelly, you introduced this Dio song that none of us have ever heard of. And then she'd be like, all right, it's the song Dio. I don't know. 93.3 to Bone. James Parker's over there now, 2 to 5. So we're gonna sign off here. We're gonna jump over there. We're gonna have some fun, and I'll meet you in the chat room. The YouTube chat room for that hasn't been working lately. It wasn't up and running yesterday, so we had to hang out in the Facebook chat room. Join us in the Facebook chat room. If the YouTube chat, just join in the chat. Come on over, James Parker. You can find him at James Parker Show on Facebook. That's it. We're out of here. These are my last few words. I love you guys. Oh, and thank you one more time. Seriously, this cannot be overstressed. Thank you to Jeff, Jeff B., the executive producer of today's show. He dropped a tip. It wasn't a $5 or a $10 tip. You know, he dropped a bone, and the bone is 100. He didn't do that. We wouldn't be asking for tips anymore if someone did that. But thank you to Jeff. I appreciate Jeff being the executive producer of today's show. If you also would like to be tomorrow's executive producer, I don't think that we have one yet. So time is open. Bye, everybody. The stream of consciousness has now gone well over 2 hours, and I feel confident in saying bye.